What kind of king do you think he'll be?
Well, you know what you're getting, because he's been practicing for a bit.
The moment that shattered the palace walls wasn't supposed to happen. Behind closed doors at Sandringham, a secret so explosive was revealed that it sent shockwaves through the entire British monarchy. And the person who broke down? None other than the future king himself. What could possibly make Prince William, a man trained since birth to show no emotion, completely lose his composure? The answer lies in a deathbed confession that nobody saw coming. A revelation so powerful it threatens to rewrite everything we thought we knew about the royal succession. And at the center of it all, the most unlikely person imaginable. Picture this: January 2025. The royal family gathers for what appears to be a routine meeting. But something's different. The air feels electric, charged with intention nobody can quite name. King Charles is nowhere to be found. His empty chair at the head of the table speaks volumes. The ornate cushion that should bear the weight of a king instead holds only shadows and whispers of what's to come. For months, the palace had been spinning stories about minor health concerns, routine checkups. Nothing to worry about. The PR machine worked overtime, churning out reassuring statements and carefully staged photos. But those closest to the king knew the truth was far more devastating. Cancer had taken hold, spreading through his body like wildfire, and time was running out faster than anyone dared admit. The family members present that day would later describe a scene of unbearable tension. William sat rigid, his jaw clenched so tight you could see the muscles working beneath his skin. Catherine, usually the picture of composed elegance, fidgeted with her wedding ring, a tale that only those who knew her best would recognize. Even young George, brought in for what was supposed to be a simple family gathering, sensed something monumental was about to unfold. Enter Princess Anne, the woman who never sought the spotlight, never craved attention, never played palace politics. The princess who had attended more royal engagements than any other family member, yet somehow remained in the shadows. But on this day, she commanded the room like never before. Dressed in her signature no-nonsense style, she clutched a sealed envelope that would change everything. The royal coat of arms on the wax seal seemed to pulse with significance. As she cleared her throat to speak, you could hear a pin drop. Even the palace staff, usually invisible in their practiced discretion, seemed to hold their breath. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly, each second stretching into eternity. Anne's voice, when it finally came, was steady but laden with emotion she rarely displayed. "Before I begin," she said, her eyes scanning the room, "I need you all to understand that what I'm about to share comes directly from His Majesty. These are his words, his wishes, his vision for the future of our family and our nation. What happened next defied every protocol, every tradition, every expectation, and didn't just deliver a message. She detonated a bomb that would reshape the monarchy forever. The king's final wish wasn't about William. It wasn't even primarily about the succession. It was about someone who had been hiding in plain sight all along. To understand the earthquake that followed, we need to rewind. Charles had ascended to the throne after the longest wait in British history. 70 years in his mother's shadow. 70 years of preparation. 70 years of watching, learning, planning. Yet when the crown finally rested on his head, it came with a diagnosis that would cut his reign tragically short. The cruel irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who had waited his entire life to be king would barely get to taste the power he craved. But Charles was nothing if not strategic. Even as cancer ravaged his body, his mind remained sharp as a blade. He saw what others missed. He noticed patterns that escaped even his closest advisors. Like a chess grandmaster playing 3 moves ahead, he recognized threats and opportunities invisible to everyone else. And what he discovered about the future of the monarchy terrified him enough to take unprecedented action. Behind the palace walls, A different story was unfolding. While the public saw carefully orchestrated appearances and reassuring statements, the reality was far more dramatic. Charles was fading fast. His appearances grew shorter, his speeches more strained. The vibrant man who had finally claimed his destiny was becoming a ghost of himself. Staff whispered about finding him collapsed in his study, about emergency medical teams arriving under cover darkness, about hushed phone calls to specialists around the world. The transformation was heartbreaking to witness. The king who had once stood tall now seemed to shrink before their eyes. His voice, once commanding and clear, became a whisper. His hands, which had signed historic documents and shaken the hands of world leaders, now trembled uncontrollably. And with each passing day, one question loomed larger. What would happen when he was gone? The power vacuum was already creating tension. William, the heir apparent, was stepping up to fill the gaps. He attended state functions, met with prime ministers, represented the crown at international events. But something unexpected was happening. Every time he appeared alongside his wife Catherine, something shifted. The energy in the room changed. The cameras gravitated toward her like moths to a flame. The crowds reached for her with desperate enthusiasm. The headlines featured her. And William? He was becoming a supporting player in his own story. This wasn't supposed to happen. The monarchy had rules, hierarchies, carefully maintained power structures that had survived for centuries. The heir was meant to shine while the spouse supported. It was a dance as old as the institution itself. But Catherine was rewriting the playbook without even trying. Her every gesture, every word, every appearance seemed to resonate with the public in ways that Williams never quite managed. She had that rare quality, the ability to seem both regal and relatable, distant enough to inspire awe but close enough to inspire love. Charles, watching from his sickbed, saw it all. Through pain-clouded eyes, he observed the shifting dynamics with clarity of a man who knows his time is running out. He called for secret reports, had aides compile social media analytics, studied public opinion polls with the intensity of a general planning a campaign. What he found confirmed his suspicions and sparked a plan that would have been unthinkable just years before. The king's observation went deeper than mere popularity. He recognized something in Catherine that reminded him of someone else. Someone who had also married into the family as an outsider. Someone who had also captured hearts with authenticity rather than birthright. Diana. But unlike that tragic figure from the past, Catherine had something different. She had steel beneath the silk. Where Diana had been emotional, Catherine was strategic. Where Diana had fought the system, Catherine had learned to work within it while subtly transforming it from the inside. Charles had watched Catherine navigate crisis after crisis with a grace that impressed even him. The phone hacking scandal that could have destroyed her, she emerged stronger. The constant comparisons to Diana that could have crushed her, she carved her own path. The health scares, the family dramas, the relentless scrutiny. She faced them all with composure that spoke of inner strength few possessed. Anne's revelation that day at Sandringham wasn't just about succession. It was about survival. Charles had seen the writing on the wall. The monarchy needed more than tradition to survive the 21st century. It needed someone who could bridge the gap between ancient institution and modern world. Someone who understood both the weight of history and the demands of the future. And in his final months, he'd reached a conclusion that would have been unthinkable just years before. The document and held contained instructions that went against centuries of precedent. Page after page of carefully considered reforms, each more radical than the last. Charles wasn't just acknowledging Catherine's influence, he was actively empowering it. The dying king had crafted a plan that would position Catherine not as a mere consort, but as a co-ruler in all but name. Legal documents had been prepared in secret. Constitutional experts had been consulted under strict confidentiality agreements. The groundwork had been laid for a transformation that would shake the very foundations of the monarchy. As in read, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing, the room seemed to spin. Charles had proposed a new model of monarchy, one where power was shared, where the queen consort would have executive authority in key areas, where the rigid hierarchies that had defined royal life for centuries would be reimagined for a new age. William's reaction when he read those words aloud was visceral. His face went through a series of transformations: shock, disbelief, something that might have been betrayal, and finally, devastatingly, understanding. This wasn't jealousy or anger. It was something far more complex. The future king found himself confronting a reality he'd been desperately trying to ignore. His wife hadn't just won over the public. She'd won over his father, and the implications were staggering. The document went further. Charles had identified specific areas where Catherine would take the lead: mental health initiatives, early childhood development, Commonwealth relations. But these weren't ceremonial roles. They came with budgets, staff, real decision-making power. The king was essentially creating a new position within the monarchy, one that had never existed before. The room erupted in whispers, but it wasn't finished. She raised her hand for silence, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that made everyone lean forward. The second part of Charles's message was even more explosive. During his investigation into modernizing the monarchy, he discovered something that chilled him to the bone. Financial documents pointing to embezzlement, hidden correspondence suggesting palace coups, secret meetings between certain courtiers and Republican movements. The evidence pointed to a conspiracy within the palace itself, forces that wanted to undermine William's future reign, to weaken the monarchy from within until it collapsed under its own weight. And the only person Charles trusted to help his son navigate these treacherous waters? Catherine. His Majesty believes, and read, her voice now barely above a whisper, that Catherine possesses a unique combination of intelligence, integrity, and public support necessary to protect the institution while transforming it. He has seen in her what he once saw in his own mother, an ability to evolve while maintaining the essence of what makes the monarchy vital to our nation. But Catherine's journey to this moment had been anything but smooth. Behind her polished exterior lay battles the public never saw. The eating rumors that plagued her early years planted, Charles had discovered, by palace insiders who saw her as a threat. The vicious campaign to paint her as unsuitable, orchestrated by those who preferred a weaker consort. The constant comparisons to William's mother, weaponized to undermine her confidence. Each attack had been carefully orchestrated to break her. Instead, they'd forged her into something stronger. The health crisis that struck Catherine in 2024 could have been her undoing. Cancer doesn't care about titles or destinies. But her response to the diagnosis revealed the very qualities Charles had recognized. No self-pity, no drama, just quiet determination. She continued working behind the scenes even during chemotherapy, reviewing documents between treatments, video calling charities from her hospital bed. Her children never saw her cry, though the pain was excruciating. William would find her in the bathroom at 3 a.m., silently battling nausea, only to appear at breakfast perfectly composed, helping Charlotte with her homework. What the public didn't know was that during those long months of treatment, Catherine had been preparing, not just for recovery, but for something bigger. Secret meetings with constitutional lawyers conducted via encrypted video calls, communications with Commonwealth leaders hidden in the guise of get-well messages, building alliances that would prove crucial in the power struggle to come. Charles had given her a roadmap, but she was drawing her own route. The tension between William and Catherine became impossible to hide. Public appearances grew strained. Their body language spoke volumes to those who knew how to read it. The way they stood slightly apart at galas, the forced smiles that didn't reach their eyes, the careful choreography of their interactions. The fairy tale was cracking, but not in the way anyone expected. This wasn't about love or loyalty. This was about power, destiny, and the future of an institution that had ruled for over 1,000 years. Palace insiders began choosing sides. Team William represented tradition, established order, the way things had always been done. They were the old guard, the ones who believed in pressing above all else. Team Catherine embodied change, modernization, a monarchy that could survive and thrive in a new era. They were younger, hungrier, more attuned to the shifting tides of public opinion. The battle lines were drawn, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Anne's role in all this was pivotal. The princess who had spent her life avoiding drama found herself at the center of the biggest royal crisis in decades. But she had her own reasons for supporting Charles's plan. She'd watched the monarchy nearly crumble before. She'd seen what happened when they failed to adapt. The abdication crisis, the Diana years, the Andrew scandal. Each time, the institution had survived by the narrowest of margins, and she recognized in Catherine something the institution desperately needed, the ability to evolve without losing its essence. I've served this family for over 5 decades, and would later confide to a trusted friend. I've seen us at our best and worst. Catherine represents our best chance at a future where we're not just surviving, but thriving. The public, sensing something momentous, began taking sides without fully understanding what was at stake. Social media exploded with theories, accusations, and passionate defenses. Hashtag Team Catherine and hashtag Team William trended globally. News outlets scrambled for insider information. The palace's usually airtight PR machine began showing cracks. Leaked emails, overheard conversations, suspicious staff departures, all pointed to an institution in crisis. Then came the leaked document. How it escaped the palace remains a mystery, but its content sent shockwaves around the world. Charles hadn't just recommended a new role for Catherine. He'd outlined a complete restructuring of the monarchy, shared power, modernized succession laws, and most controversially, a mechanism for the public to have a say in royal appointments. It was revolution disguised as evolution. The leaked pages revealed Charles's thinking in his own handwriting, made shaky by illness but still unmistakably his. The monarchy must be of the people, not simply above them, he'd written. Catherine understands this in a way that gives me hope for our future. William's public response was measured, diplomatic. A carefully crafted statement about respecting his father's wishes while maintaining tradition. But those close to him described a man in turmoil. Everything he'd been raised to expect, everything he prepared for, was being rewritten by forces beyond his control. His wife, the woman he'd chosen as his partner, was becoming his greatest challenge, and his late father's hand was guiding it all from beyond the grave. In private, William's anguish was palpable. Staff reported hearing raised voices from the private apartments, though never Catherine's. She maintained her composure, even as her husband's world crumbled around him. She understood something William was still struggling to grasp. This wasn't about them. It was about the survival of an institution bigger than any individual. Catherine, meanwhile, remained strategically silent. She continued her duties, smiled for the cameras, and gave nothing away. But behind closed doors, she was assembling a team, former military strategists who understood the art of campaign warfare, media experts who could shape public narrative, constitutional scholars who could navigate the legal complexities. If this was to be a battle for the soul of the monarchy, she would be prepared. The international implications were staggering. Commonwealth nations watched closely, some seeing opportunity in the chaos. Australia's Republican movement gained momentum. Canada questioned its ties to a monarchy in crisis. The very existence of the monarchy hung in the balance. And at the center of it all, Two people who had once promised to love and cherish each other now faced off in a power struggle that would define Britain's future. As 2025 progressed, the situation reached a boiling point. Secret negotiations in windowless rooms, backdoor deals that would make Machiavelli proud, and political maneuvering worthy of medieval court intrigue. The Queen Consort title that should have been Catherine's birthright became a bargaining chip in a much larger game. And William? He found himself fighting not just for his crown, but for the very nature of kingship itself. The climax came at an unexpected moment. During a state dinner for French president, with the world's media watching, Catherine did something that nobody anticipated. As the formal toast concluded, she stood up, looked directly at William, and spoke words that would echo through history. Her proposal was simple, brilliant, and utterly unprecedented. Instead of fighting over power, why not redefine entirely? "Your Majesty," she began, addressing William with his future title. "The monarchy has survived for over 1,000 years not by resisting change, but by embracing it. Tonight, I propose we honor your father's vision not through conflict, but through collaboration. Let us create a monarchy that draws strength from partnership, not hierarchy." The room fell silent. Cameras clicked furiously. And then, in a moment that would be replayed countless times, William stood. For a heartbeat, the future of the monarchy hung in the balance. Then he extended his hand to his wife. "For crown and country," he said simply. And Catherine, taking his hand, replied, "For the people." What followed was the most extraordinary transformation in royal history. Not a coup, not a revolution, but an evolution so profound it changed everything. The monarchy that emerged from this crisis looked nothing like what had come before. Shared authority, transparent governance, and a connection to the people that went beyond ceremony. And the architect of this new institution, the woman who had entered the palace as a commoner and emerged as its most powerful figure. The new model was radical, yet somehow inevitable. Joint speeches, shared patronages, and a partnership that elevated both William and Catherine. The public, rather than choosing sides, embraced this new vision of monarchy. Approval ratings soared. The Commonwealth, rather than fragmenting, found new purpose in this modernized institution. But questions remain. Was this Charles's plan all along? Did he orchestrate this transformation from his deathbed, using Catherine as his instrument of change? Or did Catherine exceed even his wildest expectations, taking his initial vision and transforming it into something far more radical? The truth may never fully emerge from behind palace walls, but one thing is certain: the monarchy will never be the same. As this unprecedented drama continues to unfold, one thing becomes crystal clear. We're not just witnessing history. We're watching the birth of a new era. And Catherine, she's not just part of that history. She's writing it with her own hand, proving that sometimes the most powerful revolutions happen not with violence, but with vision. The commoner who became a princess, the princess who became a queen, and now, something entirely new, a monarch for a modern world, sharing power and shaping the future alongside her king. The dying king's wish had been granted in ways he could never have imagined. And the monarchy, it hasn't just survived. It's been reborn,